7-Eleven coffee.
Hi, guys. I started a little before our thing started, but it's 7, so let's go with it. My name is Attorney Vivian, and I am Judge Vivian. I'm here with my co-host, Judge Dawn, and we have a special guest.
Special guest.
I like special guests.
Always honored. Always.
Flavia Alexander Esquire. Now, somebody quickly asked me this question, so I'm going to respond to this question really fast before we begin. Here's the normal spiel. Welcome to As the Law Turns. I am doing this show because I wanted to increase the 5%. What is the 5%, you ask? It's the fact that out of hundreds of thousands of people who become lawyers, only 5% are Black. Yes, that includes both men and women. And guess the funny part? The ABA, which is the American Bar Association, says that 88% are white and mostly male. So I said, hey, I think people need to see our faces a little more. Maybe we need to show ourselves and put ourselves out there and say, we exist. We are here. Well, guess what? We exist. We are here. And we come on As the Law Turns every Thursday night at 7 p.m. We got a really fun topic tonight, but I am let our special guest introduce herself.
Yes.
Miss Latavia.
Hello, Latavia Alexander. I am happy to be here and happy to be a part of the 5%. But I am Latavia Alexander. I'm the owner of LA Legal Solutions. It is a civil transactional firm. We focus on copyright, trademark, business, corporate law, as well as estate planning, or as I like to call it, legacy planning. I am licensed in North Carolina, Maryland, and DC. So I practice kind of across those 3 states. And I'm happy to be here and excited to get into this topic because it is an important and also unique one. So thank you all for having me.
Yay. Welcome. And you know, this is a free thing, right? Okay. I'm sorry. I know. Don't shade me already. I just want to be. I'm covering the legal stuff. I am covering the legal stuff.
I love the shades.
I am Judge Dawn, and in my former life, before retirement, December last year, I was a real judge, a real gavel banging, robe wearing. What did you say to me? Judge. I graduated law school in '93 from University of Georgia. I am Georgia barred. That means you have to be licensed in every state you practice. So I moved back home in 1995. I became a prosecutor for a number of years, high school teacher, ran for judge, elected judge 3 terms, and retired last year. On the heels of my retirement, when I was thinking I was going to be living La Vida Loca and spending my time in Jamaica, watching the Jamaican men on the beach, Judge Vivian asked me to do this show, and I gladly agreed on it because our goal is to increase minority participation. And I'm not going to get off topic, but the president is looking for a Black female Supreme Court justice. Doggone shame. And in 2022, we're still talking about the first Black female justice. Shame, shame, shame on the system. Shame on everybody. Okay, so get that out of the way. So that's a good thing, but it's a shame that we're still talking about in 2023, the same thing we were talking about when I was in law school in 1989 to 93. So it's a shame.
Well, we only had one Black man, so
yes. Yes. That's the 5%. Yeah.
Well, we are gonna dive. I'm always excited. I'd be like, I'm so excited about this topic every week. And I'm like, you probably be like, shut up, we know. So tonight we're talking about Meek Mill and JayZ. Judge Dawn, I know you don't know who they are. However,
I did my Google research. I learned about the Breakfast Club, JayZ, Beyonce, and Meek Mill.
Oh, look at you. JayZ is Beyonce's husband. That's what I call him because, you know, I didn't know much JayZ music until after I knew Beyonce. So Beyonce's husband has gotten together with Meek Mill, and they are banding together, even though at one point they were enemies, so kudos to them. They are banding together to ban rap lyrics from being a part of trials. What do you mean, Judge Vivian? I mean, they are putting up or highlighting or bringing awareness and attention to a bill that states that you cannot use the rap lyrics of rappers in the trials to say that they're guilty of some kind of crime that they're being charged for. Most times these crimes have to do with murder, fraud, and or some kind of bodily harm. And literally, I kid you not, they've been using the lyrics of these rappers to say that because they wrote these lyrics, they must have shot so and so in the back.
Now, understand a little bit of history lesson. This is how laws are made, members of the public. Some normal citizen, Meek Miles or Meek Mills and JayZ and Beyonce, who spend $800 on a pair of shoes. But anyway, some normal person has some sort of legal issue, be the popular, famous, or not popular, famous, and that legal issue becomes a challenge in the system, and that challenge is now brought before the legislators who create these laws and different laws and stuff like that. And these laws are good or laws are bad. So that's how things kind of come to the forefront. Someone, just a normal person, gets involved in something, it comes to court, it goes before the legislators, and laws are created. That's how we get here.
So this law right now is in New York, and it's got some heavyweights behind it. Kelly Rowland has signed on to it. If I'm not mistaken, they said Fat Joe, Big Sean, Yo Gotti. These are all other popular rappers, singers, writers, Robin Thicke. And they're all agreeing that this should be something that should happen. It has been backed up by Governor Kathy Hochul, and it recently passed the Senate Codes Committee. So that means it is getting some traction. And I'm actually kind of excited for it. I got a little cute point I'm gonna bring up later, but I want to hear what Latavia has to say.
No, I agree. I'm looking forward to it because it's one of those things that I've heard about, seen in headlines about rap lyrics being used in court, or always assuming negative, specifically when it comes to rap music, which that's a whole other, I would say that's another segue. But yeah, I am excited and I am hopeful that since it has already gotten some traction and it does have kind of the who's who within the hip hop industry behind it as well. And I think the other thing that's important about this is these are artists who are big in hip hop, but they're also ones who have kind of had that crossover effect. And so they do have a mass national appeal and even international appeal. So I think the fact that they are behind this and supporting it will curry a little bit more favor as it makes its way through this process. So,
well, I have one statement.
Uh-oh.
If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it probably is a duck. When I'm on trial or accused of something, there is the jury's right to know kind of what kind of person I am, just a little bit. And I say just a little bit because we know that prior bad acts, what I say in another situation, it doesn't really come into court. It's a long theory of law, but the law says the prior bad acts of the accused really shouldn't come into play because it gives the jury impression that if you did it once, you did it again. However, if I'm on trial for hurting my spouse and I make my living by fantasizing, creating the scenario, encouraging, hurting my spouse, I'm not sure that the jury shouldn't have some sort of awareness of what I do. Maybe with some sort of what we call a curative instruction, something to say to the jury. Members of the jury, you can believe or disbelieve. This is an issue of credibility. But Judge Fields has made $1 million a year about talking about hurting her spouse. And you know what? Coincidentally, the way her spouse was hurt, so it's the same way she raps about in her music that she's made $1 million a year off. So I'm not really sure that the rap lyrics should be silenced. I don't know.
I disagree. And I'm going to say the biggest reason why is because, be fair, if you're going to bring in rap lyrics, bring in country music too. As a matter of fact, Johnny Cash, is one of the most quoted consistent murder themes in his country music. As a matter of fact, one of his lyrics is, "I shot a man in a watch just to watch him die." It's in his whole lyrics.
Like, was he ever on trial for murder? Did he have a scenario? Did he have lights and cameras and hoopty cars? And
Johnny Cash sung this song constantly on stage. He has other songs about murder. There are several other songs about decapitating wives. There are several other, and I decided to look this up because I was like, this isn't, for me, if you're gonna say that, then tell everybody that. Country music is one of the biggest ones. I started looking at other types of genres that do it, but country music is one of the biggest ones that have consistent themes about murder, have consistent themes about beating people up, harming them, bar fights, beer fights with cuts. Carrie Underwood even had a song about the wife and the mistress getting together, plotting to kill the husband. Now, we know that scenario happens every day. So let's say she ends up being on trial. And these trials happen sometimes out of happenstance. In one particular instance, if I'm not mistaken, one of the rappers that was mentioned, one of the biggest reasons why this bill is being done, was on trial for something he didn't do. And the person that they were claiming he harmed wasn't even in the area that he was the night they're alleging said harm. But they tried.
All of this is all open debate and conversation. I would think that Johnny Cash's one or two songs, for sake of argument, are different from a rapper that consistently does this kind of thing. And he's on trial for the same conduct that he's consistently talked about. Now, I say that if you get rappers, get country music, get ballads, get jazz musicians. So if the theme is musical lyrics, come in, fine. Don't separate rappers. If that law passes, I think musical lyrics should play some small part of what the jury knows. We have a lot of comments, and I'm glad people are screening in, especially my cousin, Bernice Starling. Hi, Bernice, my cousin. Anyway, so I'm glad people are participating in this, old and young, because my cousin Bernice is, she's kind of long in the tooth. I'm 63 and she's older than me. So anyway, I'm glad people are, there's a conversation to reach all ages, and I'm like loving that.
Yeah, I would say I agree with both of you all in different points. Like I said, I do hope that this bill passes. And one of the things in an article I noticed that in terms of a requirement that they're adding to the bill is that in order for this evidence to be able to be admitted, it would have to be a strong factual nexus between the art and the facts of the case. And I appreciate that they added that specificity to it, because I think the challenge now is, and I forget the name, but there was a case in 2014 in New Jersey where the prosecution essentially built most, if not all of its case solely on that rapper's lyrics. And eventually he was acquitted, it was overturned, but it was essentially, they were building it all solely on the lyrics, and they didn't really put in any effort to show the connection. And I think to your point, yes, if I am constantly making music about violent behavior, or I have made it known that this is how I live my life or how I previously did, and I've done these things, I do think when we get into that conversation in terms of the evidence rule of like more probative than prejudicial, I think it is a valid consideration. But I think there should be a much higher bar. And I do like what they included, that it would need to be shown by clear and convincing, which of course is not as high as more likely than not. But I always like to explain clear and convincing as at least like 75% sure that the jury needs to hear this.
I like what Judge Alexander said, a strong factual nexus. And I'm going to give the teaching moment. A strong factual nexus is just like the judge determines. And so if I'm a white judge born and raised in Beverly Hills, have never seen a negative bill in my life, my strong factual nexus is probably a little different than Dawn Fields, who's 63 years old, who was a part of integration in 1972 and 73. Thus, Judge Vivian's point, we need more diversity. We need to have people that are different races, different colors, different experiences to formulate this law, because there will be one judge that says, I find it's a strong factual nexus. That judge has a whole different experience than these three Black women sitting right here in front of you. Whole different life experience.
I agree, but I agree more so. I'm with Latavia on this one. I think the bill should pass because I do appreciate the fact that there is that nexus, and I get it. But like I said, I just feel like we should be fair across the board. If you want to bring in, let's face it, most times if people want to make a negative comment about music, they're going straight to Black men. Is that their fault? No, because there are a lot of white men, Asian men, Hispanic men who make the same music. So why weren't their trials? Because there have been a few that have had Hispanic trials for murder and whatnot, but their lyrics weren't brought into question that deep. And the case that Latavia is talking about is Drakeo the Ruler. He was his lyrics were used so egregiously to bolster the prosecution that they were trying to say that he targeted this man in a fatal shooting because of a song that he talked about how he would target people in a fatal shooting. And the person in which they were speaking about, he wasn't even in the same space with the night the man was shot. But they tried to connect it because of the lyrics of his music. And I want to point out that Johnny Cash didn't just do one song. He didn't just do two. Johnny Cash has about 10 songs for murder.
But when you think about Johnny Cash and think about a rapper and think about Barbra Streisand, what's the overall reputation? I'm sure Johnny Cash, out of his thousands of songs, may have 10 that lean towards, as opposed to Meek Mills or Meek Miles of 20 songs, maybe one doesn't curse, one doesn't talk about slap your mama, one doesn't talk about killing.
That's the problem. Why do we ascertain the way Black men say things when they're mad or they upset or the way they feel about life negatively versus other people? Because like I said, Meek Mill, while he is a former, I think he might have actually been in a small gang, while he was while he is a rapper that has a lot of different lyrics, I can go and say Creed. Creed is a rock band. Creed, every single song is dark.
Yes.
So are we calling Creed to the table? Like
I agree with what it is. I think my point is, let's make sure the law is massaged to the point that we don't group everybody together. We're not going to group Johnny Cash and Barbra Streisand and Meek Mills and JC with the same brush. I don't know how broad the brush needs to be.
I think that's sorry. I guess I hear where you're coming from, but I guess I think that there's also a danger in that, in the sense of not approaching them or giving them the same treatment from the standpoint of they are artists. And I think that's one of the things, and kind of when I was reading through like the justification or the purpose behind them introducing this bill is, at the end of the day, JayZ, Barbra Streisand, Dolly Parton, they're artists. And especially the artists who are actually the ones who, write their own lyrics or create their own music. This is a form of their creative expression. This is their original thought. Some of it now, and I would say the caveat is, I know that there are some rappers or artists who do go out and they just basically tell on themselves in their music. Now that, I think, yes, you brought that on yourself, but I know that that's not the case all the time. But I think that, especially, and you mentioned growing up in the South and going through integration. My family is from the South, and my dad was in the military, so I've lived all over. But I think of this from the standpoint of, if we think about our country and systemic racism, it's already embedded into the system, and you all know that our justice system is flawed at best. So I think that's the challenge, is far too often when people hear rap or hip hop, it's already has that negative connotation to it. And then if you hear that the artist has a colorful past, and then they're now rapping about, because with JayZ, I don't know all of his music, but I know a lot of it is he rapped about the things that he used to do in the past. And he's evolved, but I think that's the caution. So I think when it comes to, we are looking at their lyrics, whether it's a Johnny Cash, or even a gospel artist, or country, pop, hip hop, whatever, when it comes to, I think, asking that question, that evidentiary question of, is this more probative than prejudicial? They should be painted with the same brush, and the evaluation should be the same across the board, which unfortunately we know is not always the case, because it's the judge that's making that ultimate decision.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And most of the
Exactly.
judges don't look like us.
Yes, I want to point to some of the comments, because we're getting some good comments in here. Somebody said you better make sure the jury is really that rapper's peers, Alicia. So, you know what? I'm gonna tell you, I had the pleasure yesterday of after having a court case of seeing another trial. It was a DUI trial here, very briefly before I had to go back to work, and I noticed 4 Black jurors. That was one of the most shocking moments I have ever had.
Wow.
I call Black jurors unicorns. Because if you see one, they are going to be like, no, they're off. And then I'm like, racially motivated, give me a reason why. And and then they want to say, oh, well, I don't think they have the experience. And that's the problem that I think we're running into with this question too, right, tonight is, first of all, and this is a good question, and it's a little bit of shade to you, Judge, so I'm going to put this on real fast. Do you know any Meek Mill lyrics? And I think it's largely, I'm saying it like this too, because it actually begs both questions of the point. Do people know the lyrics of some of these other artists simply because they're painting them with that nice little pretty brush? Oh, I'm not paying attention to Barbra Streisand wanting to harm somebody, so I don't notice her lyrics are volatile. Or, no, I'm paying attention to this person, so I don't consider their lyrics to be volatile.
The reason I say Barbra Streisand, because some music, my father's a music major and I was a pianist for years. I taught piano lessons. Music stirs something. Either stirs passion or love or violence or hunger. That's the purpose. Music is just not music. It stirs something. It stirs anger. Barbra Streisand, to me, stirs peace and harmony. Meek Mills, when I listened to his music today, and I did that for research, stirred to me like, I can barely listen to this. Not to say I'm Puritan, I never curse and stuff like that. But it was just hard in your face, rap, blah, blah, blah. And he said in this interview, he said, I'm angry. I was born and raised in the streets of Philadelphia. That's how I talk. That's me. Okay, so that means rap has some kind of angry connotation. I'm not saying that's good or bad. When I took a Tracy Chapman and Barbra Streisand, I don't think Meek Mill's is the same category. I just don't. There's singing and there's rapping.
I will also say this next question ties into what you just said too. This next comment, wouldn't the writers be at fault because this isn't their ideas? Exactly. A lot of these writers have ghost writers. This is not even their actual lyrics. So you're got them on trial for words that they didn't even write. They just the ones out here giving it because, let's face it, some people got better presentation than others and they're better on stage. But somebody behind the scenes is actually the person who wrote the song. It's not even the rapper themselves. Do we bring that person in?
But you know what Mr. Mills said today in his Breakfast Club interview, when I looked at it today, he said, I used to hang out at these clubs and things happen and I was just hanging around and say, whatever. He says, now I know better. I distance myself because I know I have to protect me and my family. Personal accountability. So if I'm talking about killing cops and raping this, even though somebody else's words, it's uttered from my mouth, I'm responsible. I can't say, well, just Vivian wrote it. Well, she didn't make me say it. I said it. And I got paid $1 million to say it.
And I think that's, like I said, I think that's the challenge. A lot of it, because as wonderful as music is, and all of it is creative expression, and a lot of it is subjective in terms of the, what it means, how it resonates. Like, I know for me, I like a lot of different types of music, but depending on the mood I'm in, that is also the type of music I will listen to. I went to Temple, so I spent some time in Philly, and there are moments where I have my moments of like, yes, I want to hear Meek Mill, I want to hear music like that because that's the mood. I'm trying to kind of get amped up. And then I went to law school at North Carolina Central University, and so there's the South. like that vibe. There's music and there's like songs that I associate with while I was in law school, that I don't necessarily just listen to on a regular, but there's that kind of that mood that it evokes. And so I think the unfortunate part is, like you were saying with Meek Mill, was this is where I grew up, this is how I talk. And so if you're not used to it and you hear it, it can be off-putting, because you just hear this person, they're loud, they're kind of rah-rah, and there's this anger in their voice or in their tone, but we don't know the source of that. And I think that's the challenge that comes when you then bring it into the court of law, into kind of to the question of, are they their peers? And I think Judge Irving, you mentioned it earlier in terms of the judge coming in. If I've never heard of this person, I don't have any context. You have no context, and the first time you hear Meek Mill, or even I think the reaction you hear from hearing Meek Mill or like someone like Chance the Rapper, two different moods or two different tones. And so if you don't have context, it can be off-putting. And I would say that's where the concern comes in terms of if you bring these lyrics in without context. So that there should be, like I said, just kind of going back to making sure that there's this higher standard before, or this higher burden that the prosecution would need to meet before bringing
this information. Like your mind says, can we punish or show bias to an art form because it just doesn't soothe? I love that comment, because the purpose of this show is to say we all need to get in on this conversation. If you're leaving it to 60-year-old white boys to make that decision, of course it doesn't soothe. We should, I hate this Meek Mill, I can't even listen to it, as opposed to someone 30 or 40, born and raised in Philadelphia, went to Temple, went to North Carolina, born and raised in Daytona Beach, Jacksonville, Black female. Let me get a chance to, because I grew up with some of this. Let me say, we all need to be involved in this conversation. We need to be lawyers. We need to be judges. We need to be mediators. We need to be prosecutors. We need to be on the jury. Stop trying to get out of jury trial. Stop calling us and say, what can I do to get out of this? Nothing. Get a sweater and go to jury trial.
Sit yourself there so we can stop having unicorns. And then you mad at us, you should have got off. Well, were you?
Where were you?
Stop coming up with reasons to avoid.
Stop coming up with reasons.
Black people be the first one. Yes, I'm talking about y'all. So if you come for me, whatever. Be the first ones. I don't want to do it. I got to do this. I get that it's difficult, but your opinion matters. And if you don't think your opinion matters and you don't care that your opinion matters, then why you think they care? So, like, I agree. I was just about to say, Judge, I love that comment as well, because I'll be honest, I was in a mood today. I was in such a mood, but I was listening to JayZ song cry, and I was like, I gotta make the song cry. It was bad. I know. Exactly. Like that of me. Sorry, guys, I'm back. But I needed that today. Like, so it was like, and I get what you're saying. A lot of times in context, if judges were just going to hear this, if there were other judges on the bench, they're like, oh, this is random. No, it's something that's a real music of expression. And that's why I have such a problem with it, just because my biggest concern is that, let's face it, how many times, and rappers have not been the only singers, artists, musicians that have been on trial for things. How many times are we going to just bring, the stuff to the forefront for people of color and not for all? It's not, in my opinion, fair. So I do like that there are some pretexts to it. But I really think this bill should pass, because at the end of the day, let's also face it, some of these rappers out here is pseudo living, because they ain't seen nothing. They've been in Staten Island. Nothing. some of them know what a gun looks like. Okay,
they have very great imaginations.
I think I'm between what I said initially and what the attorneys are saying right now. There should be some personal accountability. I don't know how broad to paint the law or narrow paint the law. It should include Tracy Chapman, Barbara Streisand, Meek Mills, JayZ, Beyonce, everybody, but I don't know how to massage it. But once again, you all elect the legislators. You all sit at the table. You all need to be on the jury. Don't leave it to them and say, oh man, they just persecuted my boy JayZ. Where were you? Where were you?
Now, I want to say this. Some of the music I decided to listen to. I went to a training. What I don't even remember what it was about right now, but I remember I went to a training for law school because we have to take constant training. And he started reading these lyrics, and it was something like, I shot him in the head, and he was reading it real hard with his da 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 da, and the commentator was just going, and I shot him, and then I put him in the face, and da, 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 and he made it sound like he was DMX. He was, for those that know who DMX is, Judge, I'm gonna need you to look DMX up later.
I can look it up. I'm gonna shake in my head like I know what you're talking about. Oh yeah, DMX, yeah.
He sounded like DMX. It was so funny, and people was just like, it was hyping the crowd up. Everybody was starting to like wake up. It was funny because he was waking us up. And then he got real mellow with another set of lyrics, and he actually read from a popular rap artist, but he read it softly and calmly and respectfully and with every single T to his word. And guess what? He then said, well, which song do you think is the rap lyric? Everyone thought it was the first one. The first song was a country music song that had a nice, pretty little ballad with a violin in the back. But the second song was the actual rap song. And people said that they liked the rap song better, even though the lyrics were violent in both songs. And it was simply because how he read it. All he did was change the reading. He didn't change the lyrics. He, of course, didn't change the writing. He didn't change the music. Matter of fact, there wasn't any music. He just read them out loud. And that is what came to my brain when I read this. I was like, ooh, that's what I mean when I say there's that ugly inherent bias in the back of this.
Yeah.
Question.
And it always, hopefully, it'll change, but it will be as long as the system doesn't equally look like the society. It just happens as long as we, as Black people of color, refuse to get involved and get out of this. Simplest thing is go to your jury selection. I mean, if you're picked for a jury, just proudly go to the jury trial. The other thing, if you don't, doesn't everybody has to go to law school and be litigators or like us. Not everybody wants to do that. But why don't you join some sort of board, run for a city government or something to impact society? Because people are making laws. They're going on and doing these things. The next thing we know, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, it'll be a law, and maybe just it be aimed at rappers because everybody's sitting back and doing nothing. I know there's some stars involved in it. That's good. But everybody needs to be involved. Law touches almost every facet of your life. Almost where you drive, how fast you drive, where you live, what you say, what you sing, what you listen to. Everything.
I'm actually curious because I listen to a lot of other music types. And Latavia, I know you mentioned you do too. Are some of your other music types hype like that too? Or are you international music listener, or you meant like jazz? Because I listen to international music, and I have one of my favorite groups is GOT7. It's a Korean music group, and they got a real hard song that make you be like, oh, wait a minute. First of all, I'm learning Korean, so I don't quite know all the words. But some of the ones that I do know, I'm like, oh, they said that? And I wonder if we were to put their lyrics up against something or something, would it have the same effect? I don't know. That just came to my brain.
I love what Miss Alicia's just comment. She says, I shouldn't have to be in law or government or an attorney for the system to work. No, you shouldn't. But you should be involved in your world. You just should. Just school. PTA, and you're right. Not everybody wants to go to law school. Not everybody wants to be in government. I'm retired. I don't want to do either one of them. But this is my contribution to arouse some curiosity, some conversation. You can just be as simple as talking to a church member, talking to someone in a grocery store, checking on someone's temperature and bias about why did you feel that way when you pulled up beside me, or why did you ask me to turn down my music? Can I ask you something about where you feel and how you are? Every day you have an opportunity to create a friendlier atmosphere. All of us. All of us. You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't have to be in
I'm
government.
laughing at you. She just put right because I pay taxes and I read that in my head.
I don't blame you. I don't blame at all.
Yes,
I don't blame at all. But every day, everyone has some way to impact someone in a positive way. The way you dress, the way you speak, the way you say to the lady that cut you off, I'm sorry, I was before you. You don't have to be rapper. No, yeah.
You need some Meek Mill lyrics when they cut you off.
Yeah.
What you doing?
Right. I know. When that came up earlier, I went and looked up the lyrics for Dreams and Nightmares. Like, let me make sure. Let me review real quick. But no, I agree in terms of the music, and oftentimes I do like jazz. Usually when I'm like, I need to get work done, I put my jazz playlist on. But I think to your point, the different types of music, even I think of, like I said, my family's from the South, and one of my friends, she always talks about the juke joint music.
Yeah.
And I remember in law school, I took one of my copyright classes, and my professor, she started playing music for us, kind of going through the history, and it's like slowed down, and we were listening to some of the lyrics, and it's like, oh, that's pretty explicit, and they got real detailed.
Well, 40 years ago, James Brown was saying, "Get up off of that thing and dance, you'll feel better." So
right. So
we have our issues too.
Right. And so it's just like and I think now the challenge especially is because a lot of times I feel like more recently people get caught up in the beat, because I have been, even like when I'm working out sometimes and there's music playing, and if I remember I was working out with the trainer and I just paused for a second, like, wait, did he just say
should I be listening to this?
Is this that's what they said? I didn't know, because you just get caught up in, I really like this beat, let me help, it's going, but it's wait, what?
Yeah.
And especially when, like I said, going back and listening to music. So I think the point you made earlier about the training you were at, when you switch the arrangement of a song. Because it made me think of, I think it's the show That's My Jam, where Chance the Rapper was on there, and he did Hot in Here. He did Nelly's Hot in Here, but he did it as a country song. For one, I didn't know he could sing, but two, I would definitely say if you haven't seen it, go look it up, because especially if you haven't heard the original, it sounds like a completely different song, almost innocent like, but it's not. But he's, it's just like, because like I said, just to go to show the context and the arrangement of the music, it makes a big difference.
Well, let me say one thing before we end. Attorney Alexander has used the phrase several times: does its probative value outweigh its prejudicial effect? So as judges, we have to balance this evidence that the prosecutor wants to come in or the defense attorney wants to come out. Is the jury entitled to know it? So we have to balance, is the probative value, is what it brings to the table better or worse than the prejudice that may inure to the jury? Because you can't unring a bell. Once this out there, the jury's thinking about it. Don't ignore the pink elephant in the room. That's all you're thinking of, pink elephant. So I wanted to explain that phrase. That's one thing that the law should do. Is that probative value, what it brings to the table, is it more or less outweighed by the prejudicial effect it'll have on the listener? This has been a wonderful topic.
I don't want to stop, but I know we have to. Trying to keep 30 minutes so we can make sure that everybody can get back to their day. We will see you next Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. For those that were like, I missed you, I was on Central. We ain't on Central.
We ain't on.
Clearly I'm in a mood tonight, so I came with it.
Need some Meek Mills to calm you down. That's what you need.
No, Meek Mill might amp it up tonight.
No, we're not on Central Time. We're not on Mountain. We're on Eastern. So it's 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday night. I am glad to have you guys here. Let's increase this 5% so we get some more color in the room. Don't forget, as Judge Don said, to do your part. Attorney Alexander, do you have anything else about your firm or anything that you want to throw out really fast before we decide to give a final close?
No, just thank you all again for having me. I've really enjoyed this. And like I said, LA Legal Solutions is my firm. Focus on trademark, copyright, business formation, and legacy planning. I also host a podcast called It's All Good, just kind of chronicling my journey through adulthood and life and all the fun that comes with that. So you can check those out. LA Legal Solutions and podcast It's All Good on Instagram or lalegalsolutions.com if you have any legal questions or want to continue the conversation about your legacy and how to protect it.
Thank you, everybody. You could have been doing 1,000 things than spending this 40 minutes of us, 40 minutes of life that you could never get back. And we hope it's worthwhile. Thanks for all your comment, positive criticism. Kisses to my cousin Bern. Great show, Judge Vivian. Great show, Attorney Alexander. Good job. Proud to be a part of it.
Thank you.